Hey, Paul, what's on your mind
Yes, I want to talk about the South and owning slaves
today? Okay.
and about the slave owners. Texas colonists, before they revolted against Mexico and won their independence, had slaves, and slavery was illegal in Mexico.
Right.
And the slave owners revolted against Mexico, and Texas won its independence from Mexico. And then later they joined up with the slave owners in the South for the Civil War. And I wonder if it would be politically correct to give like Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Colorado back to Mexico, and then Trump can put up his wall.
Along with Southern California. Yeah, I'm doubtful, Paul. I'm really skeptical. You know, it's when Polk declared the Mexican-American War. Abraham Lincoln, who was then a state legislator in Springfield in Illinois, just went nuts. He was, this is a stupid war. This is a crazy war. We don't need to be doing this, et cetera, et cetera. But Polk went ahead and did it, and we got all this land from Mexico. And you're right, we spread slavery into much of it, and you know, that's just the history. You wanted to talk about the Trump wall and the monuments, Paul?
Well, the monuments, um, well, some of the generals that fought in that Mexican American War were Southern generals.
Right.
Yes, and as far as giving Texas and Oklahoma and Colorado and Southern California back to Mexico, well, then let them decide what monuments they want to keep and what monuments they want to tear down.
Yeah. The problem, Paul, is that in the last couple hundred years or 150 years or thereabouts, since that time, all of these red states, I mean, this is the problem with saying, oh, yeah, okay, let's just let the South go, right? Just draw the Mason-Dixon line and let the Confederate States be the Confederate States. The problem is there's a lot of good people living in the South. There's it's...
I'm one of them.
Okay, there you go, Paul. Thank you. In Victoria, Texas, watching us on Free Speech TV. And you're right. And so, you wouldn't like it if the U.S. government just said, okay, that's it, we're cutting Texas loose, would you?
Well, the U.S. government does lots of things they don't like,
but I mean, you'd have
just
Greg
right.
Abbott then as your president, basically. I mean, it's Ted Cruz would probably become vice president. I mean, it's just it seems like it could be really bizarre.
Yeah, well, my own personal opinion, I think Texas should have stayed its own country and never joined up with the Union, and Texas still be its own country. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, it would be real interesting to have a bunch of different countries on the North American continent. I mean, there's Mexico, the U.S., and Canada, but to have a half a dozen of the states be independent countries so that we could have these experiments in democracy would be fascinating. But that's not how it worked out.
Good morning or good afternoon.
Hi.
I'm calling with sadness to report something that occurred in my family as a result of that melee in North Carolina, Charlottesville, Virginia. The same day afterwards, my grandson, who's 6 years old, was at a day camp for children. I think it was between the ages of 6 and 12. And a group of 12-year-olds, non-African American, we're African Americans, non-African Americans boys, circled him and forced him to chant white power.
You're kidding.
I'm afraid the president has created a petty or pediatric federalist group that's coming along that's probably going to end up as toxic as what we are experiencing now. This should not happen in America. In Ohio, I think I told you some years ago, the problems that we have in Ohio is very bad, and it's because a bunch of those hate groups Ohio, and it's no surprise that the young man who ran and killed over that girl and killed her in Charlotte, Virginia, is from Ohio.
Right. Because
back in the late 80s and early 90s, according to the Southern Law Poverty Center, a group of hate groups moved into Ohio, and Ohio has the fourth largest number of hate groups in the nation, which is unthinkable considering the population size of Ohio. But this occurred in Maryland, where my grandson was hazed by a group of pediatric Federalists.
Right.
And this is shameful.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call them Federalists. I'd call them, racist, bigot, the spawn of Fox News. I don't know. Republicans? But Elizabeth, I'm...
Republicans. I think that we as Democrats should be more vocal and tell the truth.
Yeah.
That what's going on now with Donald Trump and the a great segment of society has been going on subtly within the Republican Party for years.
Oh, yeah. No, this was Richard Nixon's Southern strategy.
Symptoms of it in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Reagan.
I recognized symptoms of it in the 80s.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Ronald Reagan's first speech after he was given the Republican inauguration in 1980 at the convention, his first public speech as an official Republican candidate for president of the United States was in Philadelphia, Mississippi, where the three civil rights workers, Goodman, Cheney, and Schwimmer, were murdered. And the subject of his speech was states' rights. The Southern strategy, Nixon's Southern strategy, is alive and well. It has been used by every Republican president since Nixon, and it's being used aggressively by Donald Trump right now. And you're absolutely right, Elizabeth. And this whole embrace of white nationalism that Trump has embraced, for lack of a better word, is destructive to this country. It's immediately, over the short term, it's immediately destructive to people of color in this country, or anybody who is not a basically straight white male. But it is ultimately destructive to all of us, because it's just no way to run a society. Jim, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. I was wondering what your thought of is on Trump concerning the book Raven Rock.
I don't know the book.
Well, okay, I'm sorry then. Raven Rock is about COG, C-O-G, continuity of government, and it's the government's plans for thermonuclear shelters.
Right.
So the government will escape a nuclear war, population won't.
Yeah. And
so my question is, do you think Trump is so unhinged that given impeachment, possible criminal charges, he might trump up the possibility of a nuclear war, so him, his family, they can escape and they won't have to worry about those pesky problems of the free press, the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I don't think he thinks that far ahead. But yes, I mean, and by the way, this raises a really interesting question, Jim. Lindsey Graham this morning said that he doesn't think Trump is unhinged. He thinks Trump is pursuing a very specific political strategy. It's not one that Lindsey Graham agrees with, and I guess by implication he's saying, shout out to the white racists and bring them into the Republican Party. He says it's not one he agrees with, but it's one that he believes is well thought out. I don't know that that's true. I'm inclined to believe, and this is why I said earlier that I think that at the heart of, it's sort of like at the heart of Donald Trump's soul, it's sort of like the Grinch from a Dr. Seuss story. There's just a hole there, where his heart should be. It's just an empty space, and he has an unlimited need for love and approval. And he has no specific vision or agenda or worldview beyond that he wants to be at the center of everything constantly all the time. And And therefore, it's really, in my opinion, it's really hard to predict exactly what he might do if he's cornered. And we may see this, with this whole investigation that Robert Mueller is doing. My personal guess is that he's going to find money laundering operations in Trump's thing. Money laundering is really, really common among real estate developers, and a lot of Trump properties have been bought by, with cash. So, I don't think that Trump is sitting around thinking, oh, I'll have a nuclear war and my family and I will survive. But because he just blurts stuff out. I mean, when he blurted out that he was going to take on North Korea, his generals were like, what? When he tweeted out about the trans ban, his generals were like, what? We don't know anything about this. I think he's unstable and unhinged, and therefore represents a singular danger to our republic.